A woman in my chair last month told me she'd given up on foundation entirely. Everything caked on her dry skin and settled into every line. She's not unusual, I hear this all the time. But after 30 years doing makeup in Hollywood and being 53 myself, I got tired of watching it happen. So I went through Sephora's 10 best-selling foundations and judged them the way I judge on set. 7 have ingredients I wouldn't put near mature skin. 3 are actually safe. And the one I reach for first will never be on that shelf. IT Cosmetics CC Cream, 4 out of 10. This one frustrates me more than any product on this list because the entire marketing campaign is aimed at women with mature skin. Full coverage, smoothing, skin-loving ingredients. Sounds like exactly what you've been searching for, and on first application, I'll give it this. It covers redness nicely, but the finish is heavy and flat, almost like a mask sitting on top of your face rather than becoming part of it. I had a client look in the mirror after 2 hours and say, "This is worse than bare skin." And she was right. It had settled into every fine line around the mouth and chin. On dry skin, and let's be honest, that's nearly all of us after menopause, it actually highlighted the dryness instead of softening it. You bought it to hide those things. It puts them on display. The marketing rights checks the formula cannot cash. So that's a product built specifically for us that couldn't last 2 hours on our skin. You'd think a luxury foundation with decades of reputation behind it would do better. Armani Luminous Silk, 8 out of 10. Now, this is a different conversation entirely. There's a reason Armani Silk has been a standard on film sets and red carpets for years. The application is gorgeous. Lightweight, smooth, it practically disappears into the skin like it was always there. On a woman in her 50s, I tested this on. She looked in the mirror and just looked like she was having an incredible skin day. That's always the goal. Your skin looking healthy and rested, not covered up and smoothed over. The limitation is coverage. If you have deeper age spots or significant redness, this won't fully conceal them on its own. And it does fade around the mouth and jaw after about 4 hours, especially if you're talking and expressing and living your life all day. But the quality of the finish while it lasts is undeniable. For lighter coverage days when you want to look like yourself but better, this is one of the safe ones. Now, Armani proved that a lightweight formula can work beautifully on mature skin. So when I picked up the next one and saw the word blur on the label, I thought this might be even better. Huda Beauty Easy Blur, 3 out of 10. The name promises exactly what mature skin wants. A soft blur over texture, over pores, over everything you wish was a little less visible. And for about 20 minutes, there is a slight blurring effect. I'll be fair about that. But get close to the skin and the finish is actually heavier than it looks in any photo or any advertisement. It sits on the surface. And if you have any crepey texture around the eyes or forehead, this will find it and make it louder. By the 3-hour mark, it had gone patchy across the cheeks and completely separated around the nose, which is the #1 complaint I hear from women over 50 about foundation. On a client in her 60s, this would be genuinely embarrassing by lunchtime. That's the lowest score on my list. And honestly, it earned it. So 2 out of 3 so far are products I tell you to walk right past. But the next one is the reason I didn't give up on that bestseller wall entirely. Haus Labs Foundation, 8.5 out of 10. That's the highest score I gave any foundation at Sephora, and it earned every bit of it. Very natural finish right from the first pass. Looks like skin, feels like skin. I used this on a woman in her 60s who came in for a screen test last month, and it was the closest thing to invisible I've ever gotten from a product on that shelf. Her skin just looked like her skin, only on a really good day. It doesn't blur pores the way some fuller coverage options do, and it does settle slightly into very fine lines around the eyes after several hours, but the overall quality and texture it gives to the skin is the best I found in that entire store. If you want your foundation to disappear and just let your face look like your face, Haus Labs earned this spot, honestly. And if that was the best Sephora had to offer, I'd tell you to stop right there. But I mentioned at the top that the one I actually reach for first isn't on that shelf at all. We'll get to it. First, I need to tell you about the one that broke my heart a little. Fenty Soft Lit, 5 out of 10. On application, this looks genuinely promising. Smooth, slightly glowy, the kind of luminous finish you'd see on a magazine cover shoot. For the first hour, I thought I might be wrong about Fenty. But within a couple of hours, it had oxidized about half a shade darker on every client I tested it on, and that's the kiss of death for mature skin. Once it shifted, it started clinging to every bit of texture across the face. By midday, the glow had turned into shine in all the wrong places, and the overall look was patchy and uneven. You could see every single dry patch along the cheekbones. If you have smooth, well-hydrated skin in your 30s, you'd probably enjoy this foundation. On skin in your 50s and 60s with real texture and real dryness, it turns on you fast. So a $40 foundation that oxidizes by lunch. Meanwhile, the next one costs about $10 and outperformed it without breaking a sweat. Maybelline Fit Me, 7 out of 10. I want to talk about this one separately because it genuinely surprised me. At around $10, it costs a fraction of everything else I tested, and honestly, it outperformed most of them. Blends easily, doesn't sit in fine lines, gives you a smooth, real skin finish when your face is properly moisturized and prepped. It's probably the best lightweight drugstore foundation I've ever used on mature skin. If you're a woman in her 50s with good hydration and you just need something light for everyday errands, this is a perfectly fine choice. But for women dealing with significant dryness, creepy texture around the eyes, and skin that genuinely needs a foundation to carry it through a full day of work or events, it runs out of steam by mid-afternoon. The staying power just isn't there for the heavier concerns that come with skin over 50. Very close to my safe list, but not quite. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. I've got more honest reviews coming, and your skin deserves someone in this industry telling you the truth. Now, I still had 4 foundations left to test, and I was genuinely curious whether any luxury brand could justify its price tag on mature skin. Starting with one I wanted so badly to love. Dior Forever. 4 out of 10. And this one genuinely disappoints me because I love Dior, beautiful brand, gorgeous products in other categories. But this foundation on mature skin is a completely different story. The initial finish is lovely, smooth, slightly luminous, the kind of first impression that makes you want to buy 2 bottles and tell all your friends. But Dior Forever has a talent for finding every single pore on your face and settling right in. Up close, you could see every pore outlined like a little dot pattern across the cheeks. By afternoon, it had emphasized dry patches along the jawline, broken down entirely around the nose, and turned what started as a beautiful finish into something uneven and tired looking. The woman I tested it on said she looked better before she put it on, and I didn't argue with her. For what Dior charges, your skin deserves a foundation that respects you past lunchtime. So Dior went the same way as IT Cosmetics. Beautiful promise, gone by afternoon. But the next one has a reputation that almost kept me from testing it, and I'm glad I didn't listen. So, Estee Lauder Double Wear, 8 out of 10. Now I know some of you remember the older version of Double Wear that went on thick and heavy and felt like spackling a wall. That reputation stuck, and I understand why you might have walked past it. But the newer formulation is a genuinely different product, applied lightly with a damp beauty sponge. Double Wear gives a smooth, polished finish that doesn't scream, "I'm wearing foundation." It doesn't settle into lines, it doesn't cake on dry patches, and it holds up through a full day without separating around the nose or breaking down across the cheeks the way half of this list did. The trick is application. Use too much and it gets heavy, and that's where the old reputation comes from. But with a light hand, blended properly, this is one of the most reliable foundations I have found for skin in your 50s and 60s. That makes 3 safe picks from Sephora's shelf. And we still haven't talked about the one that actually changed how I prep clients for camera. That's coming. But I had one more bestseller to get through, and it's the one I see recommended the most online right now. Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin. 5 out of 10. To be fair, this feels wonderful going on. Very lightweight, almost like a tinted moisturizer gliding across the skin. You'd think this was going to be the one, but the coverage is inconsistent right from the start. Some areas look polished while others look barely touched, and no amount of building it up fixes the patchiness. After a few hours, it had shifted into the smile lines and the marionette lines and faded unevenly across the cheeks. The center of the face held up while the edges just vanished, which gives you that strange, unfinished look by evening. I see this one recommended constantly by influencers in their 20s and 30s, and I believe it probably works beautifully on their skin. But this is one of those foundations that looks gorgeous in the first selfie and tells a completely different story by dinner. On mature skin, I wanted to like it so much more than I did. So out of everything on Sephora's bestseller wall, 3 foundations earned a place in my kit. Armani for lighter days, Haus Labs for the most natural finish, Double Wear for all-day reliability. But I told you at the start, there's one I reach for before any of them. Luxe Color Changing Foundation. 9 out of 10. I am not exaggerating when I say this does something I haven't seen another formula do in 30 years. It comes out of the tube white, completely white. Your first instinct is that somebody made a mistake at the factory. But as you blend it in, the color shifts and actually matches to your skin tone on its own. So you're not standing in Sephora under fluorescent lights trying to guess between a warm 420 and a cool 310. And it doesn't oxidize darker 2 hours later the way Fenty did. What sold me, though, is what it does to texture. On every other foundation on this list, the finish eventually sat on top of fine lines or settled into them. This one softens them. I prepped a client for a press tour last week, 62 years old, and by 4 in the afternoon under harsh overhead press lights, her skin still looked smooth and natural and comfortable. That is what foundation should do. I actually found it cheaper on Amazon than anywhere in stores, so I'm gonna leave a link in the description below if you wanna try it. I do these reviews pretty much every day, so if you want honest breakdowns on skincare, primers, concealers, all of it, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.